The most empowering thing a teacher can do is celebrate when a young person says no as well.
Yes.
And acknowledging that saying no can sometimes be the most courageous thing a young person can do.
Every single school should have a leadership team or someone that you can approach and talk to be really candid and go, hey, my workload's feeling overwhelming right now, but also knowing what do you need.
Let's look at health for a second. If we are feeling really crummy, let's just go back to the basics. First of all, how did we sleep last night and how have we been sleeping? What have we been putting in our body? Have we had some sunlight? Have we got out in nature? Have we read a book? Podclass acknowledges the true and traditional custodians of the land we meet on here today. We are meeting in Naarm and pay our respect to the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation and all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people listening today.
So no one told you teaching was gonna be this way. Your lesson plans are jokes, your patience broke, you're feeling in disarray. It's like you're always stuck in report writing, when it hasn't been your day, your week, your month, or even your school year. But I'll be here for you.
When the students start to riot,
I'll be here for you.
even if your coffee's gone cold,
I'll be here for you, 'cause you're there for them too.
Welcome to Podclass. My name is Will and I'm joined by Amanda and Skye, the founders of Youth Engagement Project, and I'm the founder of Youth Leadership Academy Australia, and this is the one on Teacher Wellbeing.
Teacher Wellbeing, whew, what a big topic and what an important topic for us to be talking about.
I feel like it's one of those things that sometimes people say, like you hear someone say teacher wellbeing, and if it's in a room of teachers will literally laugh. Like, it's really challenging.
What do you mean? They've brought Oreos in.
What do you mean? They got, hot cross buns from Baker's Delight for morning tea. That's wellbeing, right?
Yes. Well, yes.
Yes,
Which
and
is why.
this is the importance of this conversation, right, is that we've got to figure out a way to move beyond tokenistic demonstrations of teacher wellbeing and actually get into the heart of what does wellbeing mean, and then what does teacher wellbeing mean for our educators, who literally have one of the most important jobs in the world, yet their wellbeing, when you look at the data, is some of the poorest in the world because of the load of their job, how much they've got on, all of the things that they've got to do, the administrative load, the mental load. They're also managing households and all these other things alongside it. Like, I was thinking the other day.
The emotional load.
But what other job, like maybe outside of doctors, and I'm trying to think of other professions, but like what other job that exists where you have to have
agree with me.
a meaningful...
They should be paid more than doctors.
Yes, I do believe with you. I do believe you. What other job though, where you go to work and you interact with upwards of 100 people a day in some kind of meaningful way?
That literally are the foundation of the future.
Yes.
Yes. Like, that is draining.
So draining. So draining. And
yeah, and it's important for us to open up and have these conversations, because what should true teacher wellbeing look like? What do teachers actually need in order to show up as their best selves to serve the students in their classroom, to show up as their best selves to do the job that they chose to study, to do the profession and have those careers in this industry that they spent 3 or 4 years studying at university only to get in and feel just as burnt out as when they were doing probably year 12 themselves, you know?
And I feel like mentioning burnout is important because with all of those loads, the physical load, the mental, the emotional, and, the hours that are worked and the juggle and the interaction and the social drain, with all of those factors, there's only so long we can go before we start to experience some form of burnout if we don't have strategies and boundaries in place for ourselves, And so I feel like that's really where we're going to go today, a few different places. Like, what happens when we're not looking after our wellbeing? What are the symptoms of that for ourselves and our students and our school environment? And also, how can we implement those strategies and those boundaries for ourselves so that we don't get to that place of burnout? I personally have been there. I absolutely have been there. Such a juggle. And when you are such a compassionate, caring person, which teachers are, we don't get into this space if we're not. we take it on, you know, we feel what our students are going through. We want the best for them. We want the best for our system. We want the best for our future. And it's so challenging to, you know, find that balance.
And unfortunately, the worst part is this: if we're walking into the classroom burnt out, tired, exhausted, our students, our young people are seeing that, and we're writing the narrative that that's normal and expected, and we're just building a generation that young people can't say no to things, and they keep saying yes, and we're modelling that and demonstrating that that's fine and that's normal.
Yeah,
that's so true, because this is also, that's the foundation that students are seeing as the teachers are some of their first exposure to like what a professional job is, and when that's not even being spoken about like that in like the media and in the way that it's presented, like it all becomes a bit of a joke, doesn't it?
And the flip side is when we reverse the narrative of we come in with wellbeing, we come in with our mental well-being and health and all of the things good, we then model a new shape, a new generation of looking and prioritizing that in a way that's not tokenistic, in a way that's not just fluff, but real solid foundations.
I also just had a side thought, this is a bit of a tangent, but how funny that some of our young people are coming to school and experiencing the reality of teaching, you know, and maybe their teachers are feeling overwhelmed or run down or really busy or stressed. And then maybe some of our young people are going home and hearing a really different narrative at home, which is a narrative that is so frustrating for teachers of like, oh, but teachers only do a 9 to 3.
They get 12 weeks of holidays a year. They've got so much time.
And so there's that conflicting piece.
Assumptions.
Oh,
yes, so many
assumptions. So teacher wellbeing.
And I think hand in hand with teacher wellbeing, there's this other phrase, which is teacher guilt. Teachers have so much guilt around taking time off and actually looking after themselves and prioritizing their own mental health and wellbeing, because what they know is that if they have a day off, their workload falls onto one of their colleagues.
Yes.
And it becomes this ongoing cycle then of then this other educator has to pick that workload up, and then that can build resentment or whatever, even though it shouldn't. We shouldn't ever feel guilty about taking a day or doing what we need to do for our own mental health and wellbeing. And Will, I know you are so passionate about this idea of the fact that we have to fill up our own cups, we have to fill up our own buckets first, because we can't give from an empty cup.
Yeah. If that one day is going to bring you back to 100% for a month, whatever. Like, I just think if you're operating at 50% for a month, that's not ideal. But if you just need a day to bring you back up, you're going to be able to serve your young people better, you're going to be able to feel better, and you're going to be more likely motivated to actually go to work and a little bit more excited about the career that you chose as well.
I really like that metaphor, and I feel like let's just all do a quick check-in now. If we say a full cup is 100%, like let's just all reflect on, in this moment, where are we currently sitting? Like, where is our cup in this moment? And if it's below 100%, if it's below 70%, if it's below 50%, you know, we need to consider, well, what do I need in this moment? What we know is that we can't just probably have the next month off. So therefore, we need to look at our strategies. We need to look at our boundaries and how do we give ourselves what we need? And I'm so talking to myself here.
No, I'm thinking all of us.
All of us, like, how do we give ourselves what we need whilst meeting our commitments and doing this work that we're meant to be doing in the world?
And I think the challenging part of this conversation is that on a systems level, because the system is flawed and isn't supporting teachers in this space, like we've spoken about before, and I know all three of us are really passionate about, what we have to focus on within teacher wellbeing right now is what is within our circle of control. Because we can't control a whole bunch of stuff, and we can bitch and moan and carry on about all those kind of things, and we can talk about it in the staff room, and we can go home and talk about it with our spouse or whatever it might be. But fundamentally, until something changes higher up, we put enough pressure on those systems, it's not going to change. But right now, what in this moment can we control? What is something in our circle of control within those boundaries, within that bucket filling? Like, what can we do?
So what are some of those things? I know, Will, you talk about this, like what's in our circle of control and out of our circle of control. What are some examples that we can throw around?
I think the biggest thing is our health and how we prioritize that. And when we finally make the decision to actually prioritize that, the rest of things start falling in line, right?
Yes.
Like if
it's like magic. It's like having a wand.
I think, like, I'll use the example of yesterday. Yesterday we had an event with 1,500 people, It was the best sleep I've ever had before an event. And also the response of it was I spoke probably the slowest I've ever spoken before. And
In
Which is a miracle.
in case you haven't noticed, I speak
Will's
fast.
a fast talker.
But because I prioritized sleep, the result was I was able to serve better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like that's obviously a really random example. And that you might not be speaking to 1,500 people, but it's like the reality.
I don't think it is that random, you know, and let's look at health for a second. Like if we are feeling really crummy, let's just go back to the basics. First of all, how did we sleep last night and how have we been sleeping? What have we been putting in our body? Have we had some sunlight? Have we got out in nature? Have we read a book? Have we taken 30 minutes to just stop? Like what are those? Let's look at those basics. And I know for me personally, no, right? Like that's my truth right now.
Me too.
I also know, but I think as well, like on that, one of the more important things before we even look at like how do we do this well-being thing, there's a really big word, it's a B word, and the word is boundaries. Because like as educators, and that guilt thing is such a real piece in this bit, it's like, okay, I'm going to give myself all of Sunday off. Every Sunday is just a me day. I spend time with my family, I fill my bucket, I recharge, I don't look at school emails outside of work, I don't do all of those things. But that teacher guilt creeps in, and if we don't have a strong boundary with that, well, there's every chance I'm going to open my emails on a Sunday. There's every chance I'm going to be like, not do that thing on Saturday, and then I'll be like, oh, it's fine, I'll do it on Sunday night.
Yep.
And then you get that funny feeling in your tummy because Sunday night rolls around and you realize that you haven't done all of these things that you need to do for your classes for the week or whatever it might be.
Yep.
And then it becomes this ongoing, really damaging cycle where we're not looking after our well-being.
Yep.
And I really like this theory of counterbalance and acknowledging that at different times of the year, you're going to have a different workload. So during
100%.
reporting time, you're going to have more work to do.
Yeah.
And that, like, again, looks at your priorities. For me right now, it's like, we're in a busy work time. I'm not going to go to the gym because I need to sleep more.
Yeah.
Like, you just re-look at it. And,
You're still looking after part of your well-being. It's just a
Yeah.
different part of your well-being in a different way, right? And in an ideal world, you would get good sleep and be able to go to the gym and do some meal prep and do those things and find space to, meditate or read a book or whatever it
The amount of Uber
is.
Eats I've ordered in the last week.
But having those boundaries and like for me personally, when I've been teaching for 10 years, I had to literally calendar in me time, and that was non-negotiable. And as a really social person, someone who's a little bit extroverted, I would have me time scheduled, say like 9 till 11 on Saturday morning. That was my 2 hours just for myself. And then on Friday, I get a text message from a girlfriend and they're like, hey, Skye, do you want to catch up? Let's do brunch tomorrow. I can make a booking for us at 10.
Yeah.
My instant thing is to say yes, right? Because I'm a yes person, and actually having that boundary and going, hey, I'm really sorry, I've got something on in the morning. You don't have to justify or say what it is or whatever it is, but holding yourself like true to that boundary and that time that you set aside for yourself and going, oh no, I'm actually busy in the morning, but I could catch up and see you for a coffee at 2 o'clock or whatever it is, but holding strong.
Yeah.
Very similarly, me and my computer the other day, I said 7 p.m. Friday, we both get 24 hours off. The
You and your
computer-
computer.
Your computer
computer was
needs
like-
it. Have you seen your tabs? Oh my god.
It was overheating. But like, I just think the most empowering thing a teacher can do is celebrate when a young person says no as well.
Yes.
Yes.
And acknowledging that saying no can sometimes be the most courageous thing a young
Yeah.
person can do. And for us too, when we say no, we model that.
Yeah.
We get the
Absolutely.
opportunity to model that because like the overhype of saying yes to every opportunity, whilst I strongly believe that the position we're in is because we've said yes a lot of times and also because we've said no a lot of the times as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's important because I know the teacher wellbeing, it's a big topic. We've looked at a few things already. I think we also need to acknowledge that there are things that we need to look at. How do we actually manage our workload and avoid that burnout? And what does that look like at a school's level for educators that are in the classroom? They're driving to school every day, maybe with a feeling of anxiety in their bellies or overwhelm or whatever it might be. What can we actually do day to day, Monday to Friday, to help support that? And I think one of the first and most important things is having a look at your school setting and your environment, knowing who your people are within school. So who are those other teachers that you really connect with, or the support staff that you connect with, so that you can have open, honest, vulnerable conversations and know who your support people are within your environment, but also knowing that every single school should have a leadership team or someone that you can approach and talk to be really candid and go, hey, my workload's feeling overwhelming right now, but also knowing what do you need? What is what do you need? And how to ask for that need. And if it's, hey, I know that reports are due on Wednesday, but I'm letting you know that I cannot meet that deadline because of XYZ, or even not, just because my mental health can't handle that right now. What I'm requesting respectfully is that I have an extension until Friday morning.
Yeah.
And if you have a supportive school, they're going to say yes to that. And if you don't, then maybe it's time to be like, have a look around. At the moment, there is a real and true teacher shortage in Australia.
Which is probably because of wellbeing.
Yeah, probably.
Yes,
absolutely it is.
Absolutely. And workload.
And finding a community that works for you, finding an environment with colleagues that are supportive, a leadership team that is supportive, and knowing that and having the confidence in that setting to ask for what you need and to get it.
And if you're joining us from a leadership team, Amanda always shares this really good analogy. Can you please share it with us? The fish?
Yes.
The fish. This is like one of the most powerful things that I heard.
Yes.
I was like, where is this going?
Oh,
the fish thing.
Okay. Everyone's like, are we going in the ocean?
The barramundi.
And it's true for a leadership team, but a fish is also a whole school. So the fish swims from the head down. So the way we show up from the front of our space, from the front of our room, from the front of our school has an impact all the way down to the tail. And the tail is our students, right? So however we are showing up, however we are modeling well-being, however we are talking about well-being and facilitating opportunities for well-being has a role on impact. So I think just becoming conscious, and it's not only like the leadership team to the teachers, it's the teachers to each other, it's the teacher in the classroom to the students. It all has a roll-on effect, and it all sends a message about what we think about well-being and what we know to be true about well-being. And I feel like let's start to shift this narrative, and knowing what we need is so crucial in that. We've talked about knowing what we need in our personal lives and also knowing what we need in our school environments. And what I would just really
having boundaries in both. So having boundaries in our school environment and knowing what those boundaries are. So for example, if I know that I've got period 1 off every Wednesday, but also one of my best teaching mates also has period 1 off every Wednesday, maybe my boundary is we only spend 10 minutes talking at the start of that period, and then I'm giving myself the rest of that time to get on top of my to-do list, and keeping those boundaries. Yeah,
and what I would just love to acknowledge is that knowing what we need can actually be like a vulnerable, scary thing. Reflecting on what we need can be really vulnerable because it's sitting with the truth of the fact that I need something.
Yes.
And that need I haven't just naturally met through just doing and doing and doing life. And that can be a really challenging thing for us to face as people, because as teachers, we're so outward focused, we're so others focused. And so there can be guilt, as you were saying, creep in when we have a need. But let's do our very best to scrap that, because we have needs all the time. We have professional needs, we have personal needs. If we don't meet that needs, our cup is going to go down to 10% to 5%, and then we can't serve anyone.
And then we burn out, and then we leave the profession, and then we have a teacher shortage. Oh, wait, we're already there. But it's
like
true.
Welcome to 2024.
Do you remember at the start of 2024, everyone had their ins and outs?
Yeah.
That's what you need to do for each term. What are your ins for term 2?
Ins are having clear boundaries and making sure that we acknowledge them, using your sick days and your personal days, and making sure that when you need to have a day off, you have a day off. Like Will said, if it's going to fill you up for the next however long, then do that. You're not only serving yourself, but you're serving your students in that moment. What else is in?
Another in is showing up with your peers and like your other colleagues with compassion as well. And knowing that your young people and your students are watching. They're staring at you.
And I think this is so important to really briefly mention, in is also saying no. Because often, like I was always the person in school as a teacher, someone who's highly productive, pretty efficient at doing things. And so when other people needed help or assistance in getting stuff done, I was often a person that they would go to, even though I had like so much on. And I know so many teachers are like this. It's like if you want something done, ask the busiest person you know, because they'll get it done.
Literally. And then the busiest person we know if they just do it really efficiently, what they get in exchange for that is more work.
It's more work. And that's like it's so crap,
It's
right?
a scam.
It's a scam. So that's out. That's
Yeah, I mean, that
what
is
is
out.
in is saying no.
Another thing that's in is knowing those, like, what is a cup filling activity for us personally.
Yeah.
And even I feel like I do acknowledge that there are busy seasons and quiet seasons. And I think that making space for, let's call it 1 hour or 2 hours a week of that is essential for every season.
Turn the laptop off. Don't sleep it. Shut down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In is asking for what you need, and also in is turning and deleting any form of like school communication or emails off your mobile device.
100%.
So that it is only something that you access within school. Also in something that I did in the last year is changing like my email. So if I get an email after X o'clock, that an automatic response goes to that person that's like, Skye is currently, out of work. She will endeavour to reply to you within the next, X amount of time within business hours. And it's like taking that pressure off, but also modelling and setting those expectations. It's student boundaries, it's parent boundaries, it's colleague boundaries.
I feel like an out is glorifying the hard work piece.
Oh, it's so
Like,
annoying.
We know,
absolutely.
Hustle culture.
we know it's hard work, but let's stop glorifying it and let's start talking about, yes, it's hard, but it's meaningful. And I also make space for me and I also make space for what I need. Yeah.
Let's like wrap it up by saying like,
Wait, one more thing you're out.
yeah, go.
Oreos and morning tea, wellbeing sessions.
Completely out.
Completely out.
What is in is investing in your staff. You know what?
Yeah.
They don't need another Oreo. What they need is time. What they would love is a half day. What they would love is to have CRTs that actually can come in and do those things, or, whatever it might be. Yeah. So agree with you. Hey, we want to just say, like, as educators, and I know, Will, you have so much respect for educators. You work with them all the time in your day-to-day. You're in schools all the time working with young people and listening to teachers. We have so much respect for this profession and for those of us that continue
amounts
to
of
stay in
empathy.
it. Huge amount of empathy, huge amount of compassion for understanding what it is. But just know that we have to look after ourselves first. We cannot serve our students. We cannot turn up for our students or for our families or even for ourselves if we're not looking after ourselves first.
Absolutely. So closing message.
Tomorrow's going to be the biggest sick day of teaching history.
Fill your buckets.
Consider your cup. Acknowledge
Yeah.
where you're at. Are you at an 80% or are you at a 30%? And wherever you're at, what do you need and how can you give that to yourself as soon as possible?
We are Podclass. We will see you next week.
Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.
Bye. I'll be here for you, 'cause you're there for them too.